More than a year ago, his case made national headlines.
Objection, my lady. That is complete hearsay.
Despite the funny courtroom moment, this man is accused of something serious, raping 2 different women. And the case didn't end there. Years after the crimes, he allegedly faked his death, fled off to Europe, adopted a new name, got a new wife, and developed a new accent.
Are you Mr. Rossi?
No, my lady. You might have to take that off. So shame, my lady.
Is that a yes? I'm having a hard time.
My name is Arthur. Now you pray.
I think I'm going to have the jail restate what he said. Having a really hard time hearing him.
What is it?
My name is Arthur. Knight Brain.
He says his name is Arthur Knight
Brown.
Brown.
Arthur Knight Brown.
I can't hear. You want to have him state his name and date of birth?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we can't hear him at all. Can you ask him, can you please state your name and date of birth?
Here, get a little closer.
My lady, my name is Arthur Knight Brain. My date of birth is 22nd of the 11th, 1986.
Okay,
I think we're having a problem with understanding who this person is.
this is not number 36.
Your Honor, we've got him as Nicholas Rossi, but he's saying his name is Arthur Knight Brown.
Oh, that's one of the AKAs.
Nicholas Rossi spent years maintaining he was Arthur Knight Brown, but after multiple court hearings spanning months, back in October, he made a stunning admission in court.
And today, Mr. Rossi does not deny that Arthur Knight and Nicholas Rossi are in fact the same individual.
So how did we get here? Rossi is accused of raping 2 different women in 2 different Utah counties back in 2008. Rossi allegedly raped a 21-year-old woman in Salt Lake County that year and allegedly raped his ex-girlfriend in Utah County in September of that same year. According to reports, the woman, only identified as KP, said the two met on MySpace 4 months earlier. She told investigators the two broke up weeks before, blaming the breakup on Rossi's aggressive behavior and money he owed her. Rossi allegedly invited her over, telling her he would pay her back. But according to her, that didn't happen. She told police during that meetup, Rossi allegedly unzipped his pants, exposing himself to her. When she told him to stop, he allegedly pushed her onto the couch and removed her clothes. She said she told him no repeatedly before he raped her. After, the woman claimed Rossi blocked the door, preventing her from leaving. But then he got distracted by a text message and she was able to escape. I want to thank Upside for sponsoring today's Law&Crime YouTube takeover. Upside is a free app that gets you real cash back on gas, groceries, and restaurants. It's super easy to use. Just claim an offer in the app, pay as usual using a debit or a credit card, and get paid. And this is actual real cash back too. You can use Upside at places like Shell, Exxon, 7-Eleven, and even Chipotle. So to find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside, or scan the QR code on your screen, use our promo code LCTakeover, and get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Again, that's promo code LCTakeover for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. It would take nearly a decade before his identity became clear in that case, all because of a backlog of untested rape kits.
What kind of allegation was made in the Utah County case, and when did that allegation come from?
Okay, so the case in Utah County was a reported, again, sexual assault. And so the DNA from that sexual assault kit was submitted for testing under the SAKI program, as I described earlier. And so that case required an investigation and follow-up, which then led to other information.
Okay. When and where was the sexual assault in Utah County alleged to have happened?
Best recollection, I'm sorry, it's been a minute since I've looked at it. It was 2008, I remember that. It was around the summer, the late spring, or like spring, summer of 2008.
Okay. And was that in what city was it in?
Orem was the reporting agency.
Okay. So, and I'm sorry, I've just forgotten your answer. When did you Approximately when did you say you kind of took the lead in the investigation in that Orem case?
I don't remember the specific, but it was in 2020. It was like right on the cusp of December, January.
Okay. Did you hear, so I'm jumping forward in time now, did there start to be media attention about that investigation and the subsequent investigation later on?
Yes.
As a result of that media attention, did you hear from anyone in Salt Lake County?
I did.
Who did you hear from?
So in this case, and are we using initials or full name, or would you prefer?
State's preference would be initials.
Okay. So MS reached out and had indicated that she had had a relationship with the individual on the news media named Nicholas Rossi or Nicholas Alvarez. She knew him as Nicholas Rossi.
Okay. Did you interview her?
I did.
Investigators say by that time, Rossi wasn't even in the United States anymore, and a fake obituary was posted online. He switched his name to Nicholas Brown and used a fake ID and landed himself all the way in Ireland. But a bout of COVID might have triggered his downfall. Rossi was arrested in Glasgow, Scotland in 2021 after being recognized at a hospital while he was being treated there for the virus. He claimed it was all a case of mistaken identity and that he wasn't Nicholas Oliverian, the name he was actually born with, or Nicholas Rossi, the name he later changed it to, but an orphan named Arthur Knight Brown. He fought against extradition for years, but in August of 2023, a judge in the UK ruled Arthur Knight Brown, aka Nicholas Rossi, could be extradited back to the States. He kept up the Arthur Knight Brown charade for months until he finally admitted his real identity. And he's been kept behind bars since his return to the U.S. for an obvious reason.
Mr. Rossi denied emphatically being Nicholas Rossi and claimed that he was Arthur Knight. Ultimately, that extradition process resulted in him being returned to the state of Utah, returned to the United States, and then to the state of Utah, where it was confirmed, and this is in the preliminary hearing transcript, it was confirmed that the DNA swab from the defendant was for Nicholas Rossi, and that DNA match is confirmed. And today, Mr. Rossi does not deny that Arthur Knight and Nicholas Rossi are in fact the same individual. It is true that Mr. Rossi currently faces health circumstances that may make his flight from the United States more difficult, but I'm not persuaded that it would prevent that from happening, that those conditions would prevent that from happening. He has his wife in the UK that is providing him money on a periodic basis. That money can assist him in his potential flight. He has no ties to the state of Utah of any kind. He's facing a rape charge in Salt Lake County. These are strong incentives to flee the jurisdiction, and he has demonstrated his ability to do that in the past. For all of these reasons, the court finds that the state has met its burden of proof. I will order that Mr. Rossi be held without bail.
Prior to just fleeing off to Europe, Rossi lived in Utah, then moved to Rhode Island, where he took on the job of a child welfare advocate, and he became a vocal critic of the state's Department of Children, Youth, and Families. But he claimed during that time he made some enemies, which he said led him to adopt the fake name due to the alleged threats made on his life.
The steps necessary to ensure that I was kept safe and later on to keep my family safe.
But that source of the threats haven't been made public at this time. So now Rossi is in for another battle, his actual rape trials. He's slated to go on trial in the Salt Lake County rape case this April. As for the Utah County case, prosecutors say they try to resolve that case with a plea deal that would address his charges in both the Utah County and Salt Lake County rape cases. But that never happened. Prosecutors say they withdrew their plea offer and don't plan to offer it again. So now Rossi will stand trial for that case, which is expected to begin in the fall. Let's unpack this with Utah-based criminal defense attorney Sky Lazaro. Sky, thank you so much for joining me today. Let's go back to this time last year when Nicholas Rossi was extradited back to the United States. What was your reaction to him claiming to be someone completely different and adopting that viral accent?
I mean, this case, I think, is a Netflix documentary all by itself, right? Just the crazy nature of the way it unfolded. I mean, he literally set up a new identity or created this fake identity, and went so far even to claim that when he was in the hospital, they tattooed him to frame him. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, I think the reaction is that's crazy. As a defense lawyer, those are hard things to overcome.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, both the state and Rossi's attorneys were working out a plea deal in one of the rape cases that he's facing, the Utah County one. But those talks ended up falling through. Why do you think that is? And now that prosecutors are saying that they won't offer him another one.
My guess is they've offered him the best deal that they think they can offer him, whatever that is, and he's rejected it. And I think just my guess is, and I say this because I work with these prosecutors, really familiar with the judge and the assigned prosecutor down there, who is a really reasonable prosecutor. So my guess is just looking at everything that transpired over the course of the case, the difficulty in getting him extradited, the amount of time that has lapsed, all of these things. My guess is they made an offer, and when he rejected it, they said, that's it. We're not going to keep playing this let's make a deal game. If we're going to trial, we're going to prepare for trial, and we're going to do the trial.
And now that Rossi is going to trial for both cases, how do you think Rossi will read in front of a jury in either case, given for years he's maintained that he was Arthur Knight Brown, but then a few months ago admitted he was Nicholas Rossi? But do you think the jury could easily perceive him as a liar if that evidence is put in front of that jury?
Oh, if all of that comes in, if they aren't able to keep any of that out, and everything comes in about, him fleeing the country, and I mean, just everything that went on over the course of time, the extradition, the creating the fake existence, just one thing after another. I don't know how you get past that. Now, it could be that if he doesn't testify in his own behalf, that stuff doesn't come in. I mean, that really is character evidence, right? Which is usually inadmissible. But if he gets up there and says it wasn't me, it was somebody else, that may open the door for that evidence to come in where they can say, well, you said before that it was somebody else, and it turns out it was in fact you, or something along those lines. So, I don't think that's going to play well in front of a jury. The other thing is this case has gotten not an insane amount of press, but it's certainly gotten enough press that I think a lot of people are going to be familiar with it to some extent.
Yeah, and him being accused of raping two different women, given kind of the funny moments of this entire case, that being, the fake accent, he's still facing those serious charges, which is, felony rape, first-degree felony rape in the state of Utah, again, in two separate counties. But the crime itself happened all the way back in 2008. Now, as a criminal defense attorney, say the victim does get on the stand, what could cross-examining an alleged rape victim look like, especially in front of a jury, which could include women and mothers?
It's always, I do a lot of these cases, not quite as crazy as this one's most of the time. But I think it's something you need to do somewhat delicately at times. It really is kind of dependent on who your witness is, what the allegations are, her credibility, how she's going to play to a jury. If you've got someone who's extremely sympathetic, that juries, are going to like, you can't, you don't want to be attacking them, right? And so there's ways, I think, to have a conversation, and cross-examine her to try to ferret out, if there's inconsistencies. Anytime you have a case this old, there's difficulties with it for the state and for the defense. If you have allegations that are this old, and she made a statement way back then, and now here we are all this time later, finally getting this case to trial. There's probably going to be some memory lapse or, some inconsistencies in her statement that are going to be pointed out, and maybe not. The other thing I think to consider is because he has two separate cases, they very well could try to introduce what's called 404B evidence of the other rape in this case, even though he's not convicted of it. So that might be something that comes up as well.
Yeah, definitely. And given, how vocal Rossi has been in the past, I always think of just that Dateline interview that he did where he, stood up and then fell over, and that kind of had a viral moment in itself. But given how vocal Nicholas Rossi has been in the past, I also kind of point to when he was extradited back to the States and he was just yelling out "objection, milady," all that type of antics that were going on in the courtroom. Do you see Nicholas Rossi taking the stand in his own defense during either of the cases?
Well, that is actually one of the few decisions that is solely his. Obviously his lawyers will counsel him one way or the other, depending on how, the evidence is coming in and if they think they need him to testify. And he may not take their advice. He may say, this is my day and I want to talk, and there's nothing they can do. This is one of the decisions that rests solely with him. He has a constitutional right to testify or not testify, and nobody can make that for him. I would venture to guess he is not the easiest client to have. He's been through a number of lawyers at this point. And I actually think he will probably want to testify, just given his past behavior. Maybe not. And that plays, that could play poorly for him, given, people may not even believe that he's sick. I don't know, just because he's sort of played all these lines in an effort to either not get extradited back or, not get caught or anything. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see come April whenever his first trial is set to begin. Sky Lazar, I want to thank you so much for your insight into this case. But before we sign you off, though, obviously it's too early to tell, but could you see a jury convicting Nicholas Rossi in his upcoming April trial?
I haven't seen the evidence. We're not privy, obviously, to everything that the defense attorneys have at this point. And we may never see everything. Everything that is turned over in discovery or that they have learned through investigation doesn't always make it to trial, right? Because it's either not relevant or it's excluded or something along those lines. So with the limited knowledge that we have, I could very easily see a jury convicting him. But like I said, the defense may have rejected the plea agreement because they feel strongly in their case and they actually have evidence that, would tend to prove his innocence over anything else.
All right. I guess we're going to have to wait to see how this all unfolds in April. Sky Lazaro, again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nicholas Rossi, a.k.a. Arthur Knight Brown, is slated to go on trial in the Utah County case in September of this year. As for the Salt Lake County case, he's expected to go on trial in April. His next court hearing, though, is scheduled for February 21st. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.